My name is Bjarke, VP of Engineering and Head of Cloud. I actually feel a little bit new here, even that it's weird, because I have been at Umbraco HQ for 7 years. But since January, I took on new challenges and moved to the cloud. So now I'm leading cloud. I have a background as a backend developer. So before I joined HQ, and even the first couple of years, I worked as a backend developer. I also have around 7 years of experience from the agencies, like many of you. There's also some things that is maybe not that well known about me. So some would actually call me a crazy cat man. So that's why the image is a little bit. I don't agree, but I agree that I have a crazy cat woman as wife, and somehow we ended up with 2 crazy cat kids. So that's why we have cats on the slide. And a fun story, obviously, that is AI generated. And I asked it to put on a few extra kilograms, just to be fair. Just to make me a little bit more heavy, maybe just 3 kilograms, and this was the result. So apparently this is what 3 kilograms do. That was not quite what I had in my mind. So I also really asked it, only show 2 cats. I'm not that crazy. But clearly AI has its own mind. So when I finally got something closer to what I wanted, it started putting on a shirt on one of the cats. So it basically gave up. But enough about my AI struggles. Let's look at the agenda. So first I will cover what had happened in Umbraco Cloud the last year. We will also take a sneak peek into the future and maybe dream a little bit. I'll also share some numbers and insights about the uptime and reliability of Umbraco Cloud. And finally, I will talk shortly about why, when it comes to Umbraco Cloud, we really are better together. And before we dive in, I'll take a moment just to highlight the importance of community feedback. It plays a big role in the development of Umbraco Cloud. So community is not just for the CMS. And we have been asking for and receiving a lot of feedback from all of you throughout the years. And even though it doesn't feel like that every time, it really helps us to prioritize. So the relationship between Umbraco Cloud and the community is strong, and I really hope it will stay that way. So in fact, several of the things I will show today is as they are because of the feedback we get. So let's jump into it. One of the things that makes Umbraco Cloud unique, especially compared to the CMS, is how we release features. Because we're not tied to a big fixed release schedule. Instead, we focus on continuous delivery, shipping improvements throughout the year. We often aim for minimal viable products, so we can get feedback from real users as soon as they start using it. It also means that some features will stay in beta for a while, and that's actually intentional, because then it allows us to evolve it together with those using it. So in the end product will become better. But back in August, we introduced a long-awaited feature in Umbraco Cloud. You can now import a database into your project simply by uploading it. And once it's uploaded, you can restore it into any environment of your choose. The current database will get swapped out with the one you selected. And for extra safety, there's an option so you can create a backup before you restore. So this was a direct community request. And it's a great example of how feedback turns into real features in Umbraco Cloud. In September, we made secret management available to all Umbraco Cloud plans, including the starter one. This means even smaller projects can now securely store the sensitive data, like API keys or credentials, directly in the Umbraco portal. Secrets are encrypted and stored using Azure Key Vault, so they're only accessible at runtime. And the starter plan supports up to 5 secrets per project, while it's unlimited use for the other plans. So this feature was originally introduced back in December 22, but only for the standard and professional plan. So this is also thanks to the community feedback that we actually changed this, so it's now available on the starter plan. Since October, we improved and upgraded the experience in Umbraco Cloud by adding real-time progress tracking for a lot more things. For example, when the automated patches run, you can now follow along step by step. It adds a lot more transparency to the process, so no more guessing whether it's actually started or whether it got stuck or whether it's finished. You know exactly what is happening. And security is and will always be a really high and top priority for us. Since November, it's been possible to enable the Web Application Firewall, or the WAF, on Umbraco Cloud. Today, it's enabled on all new projects, but not on the existing ones that existed before November. And WAF protects against things like SQL injections and the JavaScript exploits, powered by Cloudflare's strong protection. And personally, I think it's a no-brainer. You need to enable it, but again, before you do it, test out your own sites. We tested Umbraco Backoffice, and we know that it all works, but your front end might rely on some unique requests, and our experience tells us that it's often in the custom APIs you are doing that you will have these challenges. And right now, only about 20% of all host names in Umbraco Cloud have WAF enabled, so there's plenty of room for more to benefit from this feature. Umbraco 15 was, of course, made available on Umbraco Cloud on release day. Of course, well, almost. So this time, the release landed just 2 days after the official release of .NET 9, right in the middle of Microsoft's release party and the yearly .NET Conf, where my colleagues Emma and Lottie, by the way, made a fantastic talk. So this was really exciting, but honestly also a little nerve-wracking. We were out so early that not all Azure regions had .NET 9 available yet. So we had to roll it out region by region and carefully validating everything we depend on. So it was a bit of a balancing act, but one we're really proud of. And by the end of the release day, it was available on all regions. In January, we introduced IP filtering for the different management APIs in Umbraco Cloud. This lets you restrict access to API points, like Kudu or Git operations, so that only requests from specific IPs are allowed. And this was a customer request with a very tight deadline. But we managed to ship it in time and help this customer. And personally, I think the initial MVP was a little bit too minimal, so we already revisited it and now support IP ranges and the CIDR notation, which makes it way more useful. In February, we made it possible to connect your own identity providers, like Microsoft Entra ID, to the Umbraco CMS using OpenID Connect. And due to this protocol, obviously there's a lot of other options than just the extra ID. The feature builds on top of the CMS's existing external login support. But the key difference, in my opinion, is you can now configure it directly from the cloud portal. So you can do it without writing any code. So it's a secure and convenient way to manage access. And one thing I think is pretty cool is that you can actually add more than one provider. So for example, you can add one from your agency and another one from your end customer. So this screenshot shows how it is configured. And it's basically just the basic things from OpenID Connect. And once it's configured, it will show up on the back office login screen just below the Umbraco ID. One of the first things I had to deal with as head of cloud was how we calculate bandwidth. So in February, we introduced a minor change. Previously, you were charged for all the traffic that Cloudflare reports for your host names, including all the internal traffic that happens behind the scene. Now we only count the traffic between the end user's browser and the nearest Cloudflare edge. And all the internal stuff, we cover that. This means the bandwidth stats now reflect expectations much more accurately. And in some cases, we saw customers have reductions up to 50%. Even that, typically, was only a few percent. So a big thanks to the Cloud Advisory Board and other community members, actually, because they helped us test using real project data, and it helped us shape a more fair model. And they gave us the confidence that our numbers is actually correct because we have made a lot of deep dives. But that said, it is a complex area, and we're not done. one of the things we would like to improve is the user experience of this page. Because right now we are showing the exact calculation of the data from a given timestamp, but below we are showing some near real-time data from Cloudflare, which is sampled, by the way. So if you start multiply up, the numbers will never match up 100%. So we can improve on that one. But overall, I think this was a great example of what we can do when the platform and the community input goes hand in hand. And we actually already started looking into this page, because earlier this year, we also had to improve some minor performance issues. So in March, we rolled out improvements under the hood. And since then, the experience has been much smoother for those sites with a high bandwidth usage. So we basically had to replace our database technology underneath to something that matched the use case way better. In March, we also launched a refreshed signed-in experience from Umbraco ID. But before we get to the new version, here's a look at what it looked like before. It's functional, it's minimalistic, but maybe not as welcoming and on-brand as we would like. So it felt a little bit disconnected from the rest of Umbraco, and that's obviously something we want to fix. So here's the updated version. It's much more in line with the Umbraco look and feel, and it creates a more consistent and welcoming experience, whether you sign into the portal or your own projects. And the feedback have been really positive overall, but one thing stood out. Because this change wasn't communicated ahead of time, some people actually thought they were ended up on a phishing page. So, lessons learned. Next time we will roll out a visual change for the sign-in page, we will communicate clearly ahead of time. Even that, I really don't expect us to change that anytime soon. One request we hear very often from partners is, can you add more hosting locations? And in April, we added the 5th region, located in Canada, built on top of Azure Canada Central, and physically located in Toronto. We always take time to carefully assess the demand, because opening a new region also has a cost for us. We run a lot of infrastructure in each region. Furthermore, we actually found out not all Azure regions are equal. Some of them doesn't support our use cases or requirements. But in this case, the demand was clear, and the underlying region worked as expected, so now it's up and running. Also, in April, we introduced flexible environments. So first as an open beta, and recently as a fully available feature. It's designed for teams working on larger features, who still wants to benefit from the regular cloud flows of pushing code and content between environments. A flexible environment sits next to the development environment, but you can pull code and content from the dev, and then you can work in full isolation without disrupting the main flow. So this is ideal for long-running features or experiments where you want to benefit from cloud, but need a little bit more freedom. Right now, it's available on the standard and the professional plans, and there's a lot more information on our documentation. And if you want to see flexible environments in action, we got live demos in the Tibi over here. Unfortunately, the first session is running exactly now, but it will run again tomorrow at 11. And you will see how to spin up a feature environment, work in isolation, and still being able to push urgent fixes to live without merge conflicts and all the panic. So we will also have extra folks around. So if you have a question or just want to chat how this feature can help you, please join the Tibi tomorrow at 11. One of the newer features of Umbraco Cloud is hostname monitoring. It lets you keep an eye on your domains right from the cloud portal. You can check whether your site are responding correctly from the different regions around the world. And you can even expect things like the HTTP status code and the response times. Thereby you know if your site is up and running, and you know whether it's performing well. So there's a few limitations depending on your plan, but even the starter plan has one monitor included. On higher plans, you can monitor multiple host names, which is perfect if you are working on a site that spans multiple domains. It's a smart way to understand how your website behaves across different regions and spot potential issues before your users do. So here's what it looks like when no monitor is set up. You'll find this page under your project, then Insights, and the menu item called Hostname Monitoring. You will see a clear call to action in the bottom, and setting up a new monitor takes less than a minute. So let me show you how. You simply enter the hostname or the URL that you want to test. You choose what regions you should ping it from based on our available regions. Then you define what success looks like for you. Say maybe a maximum response time of 5 seconds and an expected response code of 200 OK. And it's all done directly from the portal without extra setup or any external tools. Once it's saved, you'll get a little toaster notification, and then your monitor will start run shortly after. If everything checks out, you will see nice green status success indicators, and from there it just keeps running automatically on the schedule you defined. Over time, you'll start seeing a history of test results build up, and the history helps you spot patterns like slowdowns, immediate failures, regional issues, even if your site hasn't gone completely down. And we mix in events that Umbraco Cloud is aware of. For example, if you just deploy it, maybe the next request is a little bit slower. It's a super helpful feature, and it's available right from the project settings in Umbraco Cloud today. Alerting isn't there yet, but it's definitely something we will be looking into adding to keep building on this MVP. And we expect to discuss it with the Cloud Advisory Board, so we are sure that we build something that actually brings value to all of you. Another new thing that just landed this June is an update to the CI/CD feature. You can now specify exactly which environments your deployment should target, including the flexible environments, by passing in an environment name. This is a small addition, but it unlocks parallel development workflows and makes the CI/CD feature way more useful. This also marks the rollout of version 2 of the API, but obviously the version 1 is still available. And there's one more bonus, because now you actually get real-time progress updates inside the portal when you're deploying using the CI/CD feature. And of course, Umbraco 16, I probably don't need to say it anymore, but it was available from day one. And compared to 15, this was a walk in the park. There was no Azure challenges, no new .NET, which also means it's really easy to upgrade for all of you. So if you're ready, the upgrade path is smooth and just waiting for you. Alongside the new features we have seen today, we are also working on a bunch of smaller internal projects. The kinds that doesn't always make the headlines or even the bullet points, but they still absolutely needs to happen. For example, we had to replace our subscription provider after the previous one went out of business. It's not glamorous, but absolutely essential for all credit card payments to work. We also expanded our logging and made sure that critical events bubble up in the portal, so you are now more likely to see what is actually going wrong. And we added boot telemetry to the CMS, so we can now tell whether the site booted warm or cold, which really can help you debugging startup issues. And we even merged a few internal repositories and systems just to free up development time, so we can focus on what really matters, bringing value to you. So now let's shift gears for a moment and take a quick look ahead. I really like this photo. It's chaotic, but it also feels familiar in a way to our roadmap. There's tons of promising paths, but they're all intersecting, but they're still full of potential. And we get a lot of good ideas, both from the community, from current customers, potential customers, former customers, and even internally from HQ. But by the end of the day, we must take some tough choices about what to build next. So here's a glimpse into where we might be heading, with the usual disclaimer that things change, but I still think it's important to dream. And let's kick off this part with something that's maybe not that shiny, but absolutely essential. We are back to security. Every time we go through a penetration test, we get flagged for weak TLS ciphers. These are outdated encryption methods that modern browsers and tools don't really need anymore, but technically are still supporting. So we are going to phase out support for everything below TLS 1.2 on Umbraco Cloud. And now don't worry, we won't go full NSA paranoia here. We won't pick up some ultra strict cipher list. Instead, we're switching to Cloudflare's recommended cipher suite, which strikes a good balance between security and a wide compatibility. And the good news is our data shows that only about 0.005% of the traffic, that's about 50 requests out of a million, are actually using these old ciphers. And unless you're using an iPhone 4S or iPad 2 or an OS X from back from 2010, you won't notice this. We also noticed that you're using our secret management feature for all kinds of things, not just the secrets. And honestly, we get it, because it's super convenient. You don't have to deploy and make changes. It's all in one place and easy to use. But we think it's important to separate what is sensitive from what is just a regular app setting. So that's why we will be introducing a new feature for app settings. It will give you a clean and structured way to manage your non-secret configuration values. Things like feature flags, per environment settings. I've seen tons of examples of people using this feature to store the SMTP port or something. But I think it's important not mixing it with the actual secrets. And one thing we are actively exploring right now is how we can enable support for dedicated database servers. This builds on top of the idea of the dedicated compute, but this time focusing on the SQL server. So in practice, we would allow you to buy a database server or even an elastic pool and connect it to one or more environments, giving you much more control over scalability and performance. But we're not started building this yet, but we are seriously investigating how we could support it, both from a technical point of view, but also from a commercial. If this sounds like something that your team could benefit from, we really would like to hear it and hear your thoughts, so your input can help shape this feature. And one thing I really would like to bring to life, even that it's super small, I think it's meaningful in the name of transparency. So, as you know, all Umbraco Cloud projects are protected by Cloudflare, including its powerful DDoS mitigation. But what you might not know is that we are getting internal alerts nearly every day when Cloudflare blocks some of these DDoS attacks. But you currently don't see them, and I think you should. So we are exploring how can we actually surface these events in the portal. So this is not to ask you to do anything, it's just to bring a clearer sense of the protection that is actually happening in Umbraco Cloud. And load balancing on Umbraco Cloud have been a recurring theme over the years. Some would maybe call it a meme now. And honestly, it's something we have wanted it for a long time. We have explored a number of different approaches, but either they added too much operational complexity or didn't play nicely with the CMS. But now with the upcoming full load balancing support in the CMS itself, we finally have a solid architectural foundation. The idea is to build directly on top of that, giving you a native cloud setup with support for full multi-instance scaling, including the back office, which historically have been impossible to load balance, probably. So we're not quite there, but the direction is clear, and it's one we really believe in now. Another improvement we are exploring is project-defined maintenance windows. So this would let you configure a preferred time frame for when automatic upgrades, like the CMS, deploy, and forms, should happen on your project. So the goal is to align better with your internal workflows, or even just time zones. But then security patches are a little bit different. We will likely still ask you to be allowed to apply those as soon as possible. But overall, this is about giving more control to you and reducing the friction that can happen with the scheduled maintenance. And from a few dreams back to something we are actually building right now, we are bringing external login provider support to the Umbraco Cloud portal. This has been a highly requested feature, especially from enterprise customers and partners. The CMS integration was really just the beginning, and now we are extending it to the portal. We will still use OpenID Connect. You'll soon be able to use your organization's identity system to sign in, and that's important for security. It also means that your IT departments can centrally manage access and user roles. So we are excited about this and hope to have it in your hands later this year. One of the most common things website owners want is a clear view of the site traffic and request activity. That's why we're working on request analytics directly inside the Umbraco portal. So no extra setup or no external tools. This will surface valuable data from the Cloudflare Web Analytics, showing right alongside your project. So this is a screenshot from Cloudflare, and it's data like this we want to expose. You'll get metrics like the number of requests, data transferred, the request types, the geographic origin of the traffic. But remember, this is sampled near-time data, so it's not 100% correct. But it will give you a much better understanding and a better picture of what is going on right now. And especially if you don't have this kind of analytics in place already. So it's a step towards giving you more actionable insights with less setup. And this also opens the door for something else we are exploring, self-service web application firewall configuration. So before you can configure a WAF meaningfully, you need to understand your traffic. And that's where the request analytics comes in. We are looking into exposing settings like separating the OWASP rule set from the managed rule set and let you change the strictness. We are looking into enabling bot protection against AI scrapers, known bots, or just traffic that doesn't follow best practices. And we are looking into letting you enable the under attack mode. So you could use that if you are seeing a spike in traffic from a given region or something, you will be able to block that, or even a DDoS block for everything. But not everything we do is flashy or visible, but I still want to be transparent about it. And right now we are focusing heavily on reducing the manual support tasks, using smarter tooling, and expanding self-service. Because every hour we free up, that means one more hour we can spend building real product improvements. We're also exploring .NET Aspire, which we think can really improve our underlying local development workflows and infrastructure. It will open up for better local testing and thereby fewer dependencies on our test environments on cloud. So these are not glamorous changes, but they're absolutely essential, helping us scale and move faster in the long run. And one of our biggest dreams is to give you a single entry point for everything you want to do with Umbraco. And right now, it's spread across Umbraco Cloud, Umbraco.com, and the partner portal, and maybe even sometimes through a phone call. We imagine a future where it's all in one place, streamlined, role-aware, and tailored to your needs, whether you're a developer or a marketeer from a partner or an enterprise partner. But this won't land tomorrow. This is the direction we are moving in. But here's a specific example of what this unified experience could enable, a proper credit overview. Today, partners can access their credits, but it's not always in a clear and professional and easy to manage. Imagine being able to see exactly how many credits you have, what they have been used for, and obviously I would like you can also spend them directly in the cloud portal as an internal payment method. So that would be a huge step in both transparency and usability. We also want to bring license and subscription management into the same experience. Whether it's for commerce or Engage or Forms, we want to make it easy to buy and assign and manage your licenses, all in one place. So today, this often means emailing or jumping between systems. But long term, we want this to be intuitive and self-service. And finally, we want to move the entire partner area into this portal too. With a news hub tailored to partners and enterprise customers, the ability to manage your public profile, access to a sales-enabling library, and get a full overview of events and webinars. But again, this is not shipping tomorrow, but this is the vision we all aligned behind, and we're really excited to bring this to life. So if this also sparked an idea with you, you can find these two gentlemen. Arton is currently working on a wireframe model, and Arnold, he collects and prioritizes ideas. So let's end this section and pause the vision for a little bit, and recognize something that doesn't always get the attention, at least not when it's working well. Let's look into uptime and operational reliability, because while features are fun, I think it's the day-to-day performance, predictability, and the transparency that really build lasting trust. And we take this part of our job very seriously. So looking at our uptime and performance over the past year, I had actually prepared to say 100%. But last week, a massive incident hit the internet, and Umbraco Cloud was also affected. For more than 2 hours, a portion of our infrastructure experienced downtime. Luckily, all custom host names was unaffected, so my guess is the impact on production has been minimal. But still, we are proud to report an uptime of 99.98% on the websites during the past 12 months. The hardcore delivery APIs are also performing strongly with 99.87% uptime across both the REST and the GraphQL endpoints. And on the back office side, we're seeing 99.43% uptime. And this was mostly due to a dependency on Umbraco ID, which was impacted by a major Azure infrastructure outrage by the end of last year. Also, the portal comes in at 90.7, and that includes everything behind the portal, and also when Umbraco ID is infected. And then we have what I call supporting services, which is basically where the rest of things end up. This could be if we can't send emails, whatever it could be, or the behind the scenes things. We also updated our status page process to reflect how we want to communicate issues going forward. So the main principle is really simple. We report regressions, meaning things that used to work but are now broken. This includes known bugs, partial outrages, also even if no support tickets has been raised. What we want to avoid is noise, like flagging issues on a brand new feature that no one is using yet. And we know that the notifications can be overwhelming, especially if you are working across multiple projects. So right now, we're also evaluating tools that can personalize the notifications based on your specific products or versions or environments of interest, areas of interest. In shared hosting, you benefit from the elastic resources, but it also means that you're sharing the capacity. And from time to time, some sites are consuming more than their plan allows. When this happens repeatedly, our monitoring will flag it, and we will move it to a dedicated resource temporarily. We will then reach out to figure out what's next. Can this project be optimized? Or should it be upgraded to another plan? Or does it make sense just to stay on a dedicated server to ensure stable performance? So this is a balancing act, but one that is key to fairness and stability across a shared resource. So this is something we have increased our focus on recently. Now that we talked about uptime and reliability, let's have a look at Umbraco Cloud, how Umbraco Cloud is actually being used out in the wild. Over the past 12 months, we've seen some interesting patterns emerge, and it's looking good in terms of usage, performance, and sustainability. So let's dive into a few highlights. We are seeing a steady increase in traffic month over month. And what's even better, is that a growing share of those requests are now cached. That's great news for everyone. Faster websites, better scalability, and a more sustainable setup. So a friendly nudge here is, if you're not using caching effectively, please consider adding it. And if you are using caching, please make sure you cache TTL so the time to lives are sensible, so you're not purging the cache too often. The more requests we can serve from the edge, the better it is for everyone. And the trend continues when we look at data transfer. The total volume is going up, but nearly 50% is now served from cache. That's a big deal. And of course, we will never hit or reach 100% because there will be dynamic content. But we're still confident that this number can still climb a lot. And the closer we get to the mostly cached, the more sustainable and high-performing the platform will become. We are also seeing a steady growth in the total number of projects on Umbraco Cloud. And this chart doesn't start from zero, but you can clearly see an upward trend. More and more people are choosing cloud, and that means more feedback, more ideas, and more scale. Exactly the kind of momentum we love to build on. And this one is super interesting. I tried to find a balance between making the colors helpful and preventing our designer Annie from having a heart attack. This graph shows the prevented DDoS attacks for each month. As you can see, there's not really a clear pattern here of the attack types. But we are often seeing that the same domain are being attacked within a short time frame with all kinds of different attack types. And on average, we have more than one attack a day that are prevented. And finally, let's look at the plan sizes. Once again, this graph doesn't start from zero, but you can clearly show a relative shift. We are seeing a larger share of consumers and customers moving to standard and professional plans. And it tells us two things. First, that projects are growing in complexity and demand. And second, that the value of what we are offering in cloud is actually resonating. And of course, it motivates us to keep investing in scalability, performance, and flexibility. So before we wrap up, I want to talk about something that really matters, because by the end of the day, technology is built by people. At least that's still how it works at Umbraco. And Umbraco Cloud is truly shaped by our conversations, your feedback, and the way we collaborate. So that's what I mean when I say better together. And this is our community advisory board. It's a group of fantastic people across the ecosystem and also across the world. They meet with us quarterly to share insights, feedback, and ensure a community-driven view on what matters. They also help us stay focused and open. We are incredibly helpful for their time and passion. Some of these people are waking up in the middle of the night just to contribute to make Umbraco Cloud a better platform for everyone. And I think that's amazing. And many of them are here at Codegarden, and I'm sure they're happy to chat. And of course, the entire Umbraco Cloud team is also here at Codegarden. You'll spot us around the venue. And if you see someone from the team, please come say hey. They are all friendly, and they're happy to hear your thoughts. Whether it's feedback, whether it's ideas, or you just want to share how you're using cloud, we're all ears. And maybe you'll notice a little bit change since last year. It's because the team that are working on Hardcore and now Compose is actually their own group now. So together, we make Umbraco Cloud better. And I think this picture illustrates it pretty well. We are filtered into each other. So that was everything I had. But I will stay here afterwards if you have any questions. And feel free to use the SpotMe platform. But before I go, here's my contact info, just in case you need it. Email is probably the best way to reach me. I'm not really a social media guy. But thank you.